Welcome to Dan's On Site with Dan Dutton and Dan Goley, a podcast and YouTube show dedicated to all things real estate, delivering market information, interviews from all perspectives, and tips for everyone involved in or interested in real estate. We'd love to hear from you. dans@dansonsite.com. Welcome to Dan's On Site. We hope that you enjoyed the mini episodes. Based on how many views, listens, however you want to count it, we got.
We're popular.
I would say super popular, actually.
In our own mind, quite frankly.
In our own mind, for
no,
sure.
We're doing very well. We appreciate all the listeners.
Yes, we do appreciate all the listeners, and we appreciate all the positive feedback that we've received so far. So thank you very much. So we have a couple big announcements before we get into the show today. First big announcement is we decided to form a Facebook group. Something that I wanted to do for a while. We wanted to use this podcast to create a community, and the Facebook group is just an extension of that community. A community for real estate professionals, those associated with the real estate industry, come share experiences, seek advice as we grow. Hopefully outside of just the Midwest, we can share referrals. I think in the current climate, networking is so huge in any climate. But today, it's how do you get out and network?
We're in the world of Zoom. So those Facebook groups, any group like that, quite frankly, is going to make it a heck of a lot easier. Everybody's comfortable to the Zooms or Teams or whatever they're using. For sure. So the name of the Facebook group is Real Estate On Site, just like Dan's, except Real Estate instead of Dan's. Come find us on Facebook, join, share your experiences. We have some different topics during the week that we want to share. Now, Goley, what's the other big announcement we have this week? We have a website. If you've listened to, and I'm sure all of you have listened to every single podcast we've had all the way to the end, you'll hear that Mr. Dutton here on the closing will talk about our Spotify or Facebook and all this other great items such as YouTube. What we try to do is simplify it, so we created a website. And it's been in work for a little while. We put a lot of hard work in. I'm kind of excited about it because our mock individual, I'm a big fan of the Rolling Stones. I was Mick Jagger.
You were.
And you were Elvis.
Yeah.
We almost left the pictures that way, but we thought, identifying might be a little bit better.
So we decided to take new pictures, which almost broke a camera, I think, in the process, but that's right. So yeah, please, we will still tell you, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all those places you can still find us, but we made it easier. Everything's in one spot. The other great thing about the website is
Should we see what our website is? I don't think I said it.
Go for it. It's probably important.
dansonsite.com. We made it super easy. dansonsite.com.
So the other thing you'll be able to find out is information on the guests. We're going to do guest bios. So if you go back and you're like, wow, I'd really like to get in touch with Ted Hawley or Tom Baldwin or maybe Tim Rexius or our guests today that we'll get into in a second. You want to find more information on them. You want to get in touch with them. That'll be on the website as well too. So before we get into the interview, you want to announce who we're bringing in just a moment?
We are bringing in TJ Twitt. He is the Omni Partners President and CEO. So he's going to bring in some insight, not only on his career, but kind of what he thinks the road is for the future in commercial real estate.
We're going to try to keep the positivity up today because as we record this, we just found out that college football is canceled for the year. So it's been
rough day.
It's been a rough morning. So anyway, stick with us. TJ Twitt coming in a second. Today, we're joined by TJ Twitt, President and CEO of Omni Partners. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're very excited to get you in. Probably should have got you in at the beginning.
Well, we did.
You guys have been doing great. You guys have been doing great.
When we did the Omni Partners office, we decided to create a studio because we knew this was coming. So this is the studio we're sitting in.
Yeah, this sweet
studio.
studio.
Also known as a conference room.
Shh, don't tell them. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in real estate, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so I got started, I guess, just over 15 years ago, and got started, actually was looking for a change of career based on the travel demands of my previous career and the fact that my wife and I were starting a family. So got very fortunate, very lucky right away. Got a job with a well-known local family-owned commercial real estate development company called the Schlossberg Company. And they got me started and worked there for a few years and had incredible access, great experience with them. They treated me like family. And then moved from there to the Lund Company, which became Cushman & Wakefield. Again, very fortunate to have great leadership with Jason Fisher and John Lund. And then was hired away to come here and start Omni Partner. Well, to move World Group to Omni Partner, what is now Omni Partners.
So I remember when you were at Schlossberg.
I remember you being at Marcus when I was at Schlossberg.
And I
space from
remember we met each other in Regency 1 building in the lobby. And it was, hey, you got a second to talk in your office real quick? And I'm like, wonder what this is all about. And I think that was when you're doing the transition from, so you're kind of grinding on it probably, from Schlossberg to Lund.
That sounds
right. And then it grew into here, and it was kind of interesting how I think we're going to have you ever met TJ Twitt before? I think he's coming in. I think that was when Randy Lenhoff was kind of making the move. So that was interesting. And then we came in here to this office is what?
Just 3.5 years ago.
3.5 years ago.
It'll be 4 years in January.
We'll do the video tour sometime.
Do you think we should do the video tour? So how?
I'm really good at it.
Do you walk with an iPad and just start talking the whole time?
I could do it in my sleep. Yeah.
So how was, because we transitioned out of kind of World Group and it made sense. Can you kind of give us a little background on the history of how that was all created?
Yeah, the history of the company and how Omni Partners came to be.
Yeah, so the company was, as you all know, and most of the people probably who watch this will know, it was World Group. So World Group was started, I guess, maybe 24 years ago now, by Trenton. And Trenton Maggie started the company. And then I would say 11 years ago, the Selden organization bought a controlling interest in what was World Group. And really that was a transaction that essentially created a vertical or a circular a circular transaction for the Selden organization. And what I mean by that is, they have 1 million plus square feet of commercial real estate, and they were third party managing it. And they then acquired controlling interest of a management company, basically taking money from one pocket and putting it into the other pocket. And they had the critical mass to do that. So World Group, the bulk of the World Group managed portfolio was the Selden-owned properties. There was then a change in the dynamics of the ownership of the Selden organization that precipitated a change in controlling interest and ownership interest in what was then World Group. And for those reasons, there were some changes that were going to be made. And they decided to hire me and to facilitate some of the changes that they wanted to see. We did not know at that point that we were going to change the name of the company, but that decision was arrived upon pretty quickly. We went through a process that I would actually love to do again, where we engaged a third-party branding and marketing company called Nelson Cash, named after Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash. And they helped us create a name and create a brand that fit our personality.
Do you ever think we should be named after country music stars?
Well, I was gonna ask, like, who had the
Nelson and Cash had already taken, so I mean...
Well, Johnny's dead, I believe.
Yeah,
Willie.
That's amazing, actually. It's just...
We should
Yeah.
thank Willie next time we see him for Omni Partners.
Yeah, we will do that.
Yeah,
It's
so-
probably
so
have a
anyway,
bunch of shows.
Sorry for
No,
interrupting.
fast forwarding to today, we are Omni Partners. The OM and the NE is Omaha, Nebraska, as you know, and we manage a lot of commercial property, just under 5 million square feet. We've got an office in Des Moines. We've got designs on opening offices in other cities as well, and we're going to be very intentional and thoughtful about our growth. But that's who we are and what our plans are.
So you have a unique perspective going from being a broker to now kind of being overseeing the whole company. You get involved in our construction department. Of course, we had Casey from USG on last week. You see what's happening in property management. And of course, you still see what's happening in brokerage. And now during this time, COVID, and it's been a unique time, a first time experience for all of us. We haven't always gotten into a lot about property management issues on this show, but since you have that unique perspective, what are some of the challenges from a property management perspective that have come up during COVID?
Well, I think that probably the biggest impact of property management from a numbers, dollars and cents perspective is property management fees are generated based on a percentage of rent received, right? So if you're not receiving as much rent, then the property management fees are reduced proportionally, right? So if we're receiving 80% of the rent, then our property management department only receives 80% of the revenue. That aside, the biggest issue that's facing property management is how to, I hate to say it like this, but how to deal with people who are experiencing COVID as directly as you can experience it from a business perspective. Their businesses are closed, right? So these people are calling our property managers to initiate conversations.
Well, they have to deal with it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like you can go
You
home
can't
and
go
work
away
from
from
home.
it. It is
Yeah.
one after the other. And I was receiving some of those calls, but not even close to the number of calls that our property managers were receiving. So it's just that toll that takes on you as an individual or as a professional, where you can't, like you said, you can't run away from those calls. You have to take those phone calls. You have to be equipped to take those phone calls. Fortunately, we have a great team, and they're
So what's the advice we've been giving to landlords? And then on the flip side of that, what advice would you give to tenants when they're in that situation?
So advice is a word that's a little loaded. I don't know. I think the advice that I would give landlords is consistency. And figure out a plan, right? And then stick to that plan as closely as you possibly can. Now, in the case of, how do you deal with a mom and pop versus an international gigantic corporation? It's a little different. Jay Lerner says that from the perspective of the giant multinational corporation is, when you're dancing with a 600-pound gorilla, the gorilla leads, right? And so you're responding constantly to what these big corporations are telling you they're going to do, right? They're not asking for permission; they're telling you. With some of the local or the more mom and pop, it does get a little bit more involved, right? So I said create some consistency, but there's a big difference in how you're dealing with the problems of those respective companies, right, or those respective tenants. The advice that we're giving tenants, really, it started very early on with how are you navigating some of the federal aid that's out there, the PPP being the most significant. So we stayed up to date and educated on what was happening with the PPP. If you remember, that rollout there was so much inconsistency with the way that the information was coming.
You talk to 5 lenders,
It's
you get
crazy,
5 different
right?
stories.
And oh my God, I got my PPP loan, and I'm standing in the line.
Right.
I'm standing in line. What
Mine's
the hell's
done,
going
and
on?
I've already signed up, and I have my check.
So there
It
was
was
a
crazy.
lot of fear and uncertainty around
Yeah.
that and it was all happening so fast.
Yeah.
So we were just trying to direct people to what we considered the best outlets to get information at that point. But Omni was going through the same thing, right? I mean, it was tough for us.
It's interesting. So we had a couple people on that, Tim Rexius, Tom Baldwin, and his partner Ted Hawley. And one thing they both spoke about was the landlords. They have multiple landlords they deal with. The landlords that they were most impressed with were the ones that reached out right away.
Yep.
That communicated to them, responded to them. And we know how landlords work in this business. They want the tenants to do the same thing. And
sure.
Dan and I talked about this communication subtopic that seems to come up in every single podcast, but that's really what we're talking about here too.
It's very much so. And I think you've talked about this on this podcast too. Like one of the things that I feel makes this entirely different than 2008 is in 2008, yes, you had landlords sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. And I remember that. I was taking those calls. And this time though, there's everybody's in it together. There's a feeling of no one knows what's going on, right? There's no clear enemy, right?
Not one party caused this problem.
No one caused it, right? So
That's up for debate. It could be a country.
Well,
We're all that caused it.
I don't know that we're
not going to debate it on this podcast. I can tell you that. There is a more of a collective in this case. So there's, I think, less reluctancy for one party to pick up the phone than for you know what I mean. So I will say that I don't think with no exception, I would say our landlords were offering as much as they possibly could. But what's forgotten in all of this, and what's unfortunately, I would say, somewhat sensationalized, is these landlords have problems too, right? They're not the one that makes the end all be all decision. They have lenders, right? And the lenders were also waiting for some sort of regulatory direction that they weren't receiving. So there's this trickle down or domino effect or whatever you want to call it. But no one really knew what the heck was going on, right? And everybody was waiting.
We were supposed to be closed out by now, if you really think about it. And now it keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed.
So all of these
college
workouts,
football.
All of these exactly. All of these were that wound is just fresh this morning. But all of these workouts that were conducted and proposed are kind of expiring now. Right. So no one said, no one in April was saying, we'll forgive rent or we'll work on some sort of deferred rental payment and we'll extend it to September. No one was saying that. At least none of our clients were saying that. So what next? What now? And we're all going to be dealing with it together again, just like we were in April. But in many ways, I think that I wouldn't want to repeat this by any stretch of the imagination, but in many ways, I do think that you did see the best of people. I think you saw the best.
I think that's right.
Everyone was together. I mean, we were all in this battle together. And when you left Schlossberg to go into Lund, the majority of your time was office.
Almost all of it. Yeah.
And so some of the podcasts, and I think we've been on some meetings. It's always been this debate on office.
We had Mark from our office came in for the mini episode, which I thought was really fantastic and interesting, but office is super interesting.
I was watching TV the other day, and the CEO of Cushman Wakefield came on. He said, when this is all going to flow out, whenever that is, 10% of current day or pre-COVID office numbers will stay home. So 90% will actually go. That's his take as of today. 90% will actually go back in the office. What do you think, all opinion, how do you think post-COVID the office market's going to look? I mean, just in our little sub-market right here, we have several 100,000 feet coming on the market. Is that still going to fill? Is it going to backfill? Is it going to reduce? How do you kind of see the office market changing?
Yeah, I think that...
Or not changing.
Yeah, I would agree with the CEOs from Cushman & Wakefield sentiment, and I want to believe that, right? So I'm trying to determine how much of this is me trying to convince myself of what I know I want to believe. because of what we all do for a living. But I truly do believe that there's a lot of, and I want to be careful here, but I think there's a lot of decision making that's being done, that's long-term decision making, and the catalyst for that long-term decision making is what will, I hope, will be a relatively short-term issue, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that there's I don't know if it's going to be a rubber band snapback. I don't think it's going to be quick, but I do think that people want to be around people in their office. And I just think for Omni Partners and what we have going on with brokerage, property management, service, and construction, that when we are at our best, it's when we have these accidental collisions in our office, right? Of brokers talking to Casey about this construction project, et cetera. So I actually think that productivity is an interesting word. So people, and I'm backtracking now, but what we heard over and over is, yeah, people are working from home, but gosh, productivity hasn't even slipped. You know, mm-hmm. we're hitting everybody's getting their work done, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that was true for us too, but you'll never understand or be able to quantify what the opportunity cost has been, right? Of not being in the office together. And I think that most people understand that, especially in a service based industry that has multiple, revenue sources like Omni, that those accidental or unintended collisions are what, put gas in this engine.
I think it's even more than that. It's that to some degree you lose communication mm-hmm. when you're not all in the office because of those accidents. It's even, there's the coming together where I have this idea. Oh, you had that idea? Well, what if we merge those ideas? Now we just all make money. But it's also from our perspective, a landlord-tenant relationship maybe where you run into a property manager and they go, hey, by the way, the landlord said this about that space. You're like, I was just talking to this tenant. Or maybe they say, this tenant's going out of that space. You're like, I just did a showing with this tenant over there, but this space is perfect for him. It's that kind of stuff that mm-hmm. you can never regain completely when you're not in the office.
You can't. And I've said since the beginning of us work, so we closed our office, as you guys know, on I think March 16th or something like that. Reopened it on June 15th. And who knows if we'll have to close, if we'll feel compelled to close again. But I could probably do that, work from home for a long time, if I knew that the light at the end of the tunnel was a vaccine that eventually gets created and gives people the comfort and confidence to go back into the workplace. But working from home, I'm not equipped as an individual to do that for indefinitely.
I just wonder, everyone's doing it this way. I mean, every company is, you hear some maybe all are in or all out, but once COVID clears, how many people continue with the kind of stay at home, not stay at home, partial? And what does that do from a competitive advantage, efficiency moving forward? How do companies handle that?
I think there are many, many companies that adapt and have adapted better than others to working from home, just because of the nature of their business, right? Mm-hmm. And there's no right or wrong there. Some people are just in the right business to do it more effectively and efficiently from home, right? Yeah. And so you see these huge corporations making these big announcements about never coming back to the physical office, right?
Well, if your home office is in Chicago, for example, and you have all these satellites, mm-hmm. but those people in the satellites are one or two people that can work from home, I think they'll be clearing out for sure.
I think there's going to be a reduction for some of these companies. I think that companies that require collaboration, they're never going to be able to duplicate that in a work from home setting. So I do think that the opportunity cost becomes too great to try and function entirely at home for a company that requires or that benefits from knowingly or unknowingly from those accidental collisions.
Well, I think there's also, look, we do more things in our home today than maybe we have for hundreds of years, right? Yeah. You take in entertainment at home more so than you used to. You do all these things more so even before COVID started. But what really is the long-term impact to our society if we take away that social function that work provides a lot of people now? I'm not sure we're prepared, or I'm not. I'll tell you right now, But of course, we have to be social in our job. But I'm not prepared for that removal of that social part of my life.
I'm not either. And I do, again, I think that some companies are better equipped, and I think the people that work for those companies are probably better equipped than I am and that you are. But yeah, I don't want the physical work environment to go away, definitely, for sure.
Well, I mean,
And I don't think it will.
some people downsized because they had a wide open, like a trader floor. You know, where you have all these wide open, you know, basically individual chairs at one long table. I think that, in my opinion, is going to go back to the traditional 10 by 10 offices or.
It's amazing. I remember, this is probably going back 10 plus years ago. And they were talking, there was a write-up about the new look of brokerage companies. They were doing away with offices completely, which had been the standard.
Or Tremblay's like that.
Once you had, reached
Wide
a certain thing, you got an office, whatever. It was basically a bench, just like you were saying. It was a bench the whole way. You didn't have assigned seating. You just kind of come in and took whatever seat for the time. And now, like that, just will. But then again, maybe in 15 years we'll go, remember COVID? Everybody built offices?
Yeah. I mean, frankly, I find, and this is my personal opinion, I know that there are brokerage firms that are wide open that are doing great, have a wide open work environment. But to me, the content of our work, the content of what we're doing, and the conversations that we're required to have, sometimes without knowing, right? Sometimes our phone rings too, right? We're not always the ones making the call. So sometimes you're responding to a ringing phone. And I think based on the content and the nature of our work, that an office setting where there's individual physical offices is just more conducive to the work that we do. My opinion.
Well, confidentiality there.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
So TJ, really appreciate having you in today. Thank you so much. We're going to hold you to all the comments about the office market. We'll replay this in like
Please do.
6
Why
months,
not? I
12
mean, why
months. No, just joking.
Well, Amazon's going brick and mortar now. Excuse me.
We didn't even talk about Amazon going brick and
center.
mortar.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
Real quick, I assume you saw the story on Amazon.
Simon,
right?
oh yeah.
They want to take over old Sears
Yep.
and JCPenney's.
And they're partnering with
whatever.
Simon. There's something
fulfillment.
about
Yeah. Could this be the savior malls have been looking for?
Maybe. I mean, knock on wood. Wouldn't it be great if it was? I mean, there's. It's so interesting though, isn't it? How that behavior, that consumer behavior of going to the mall and not knowing what you're looking for and like that. That's almost an impossible thing to explain to explain to my kids. Like, this is what we used to do. This is how we used to shop.
But we went to the mall the other day, and I won't say which mall we were at, but one that needs a lot of help. It's not dead yet. The one that needs a lot of help that they haven't.
Are there stores left to shop?
My kids were wandering around the mall, and I was trying to tell them that mall was built in the early 90s. How that was like. We went there. I was from Lincoln, but we came up to visit our cousins. Our parents would drop us off like, see you later.
4 hours.
And my kids would just stare at me like, why would you do that?
Champ's Bar was open.
Well, Champs,
That's where they
had
were.
the arcade.
No, I mean, look, I think there's the savior of malls. Who knows? I think that this is a really great thought. And there's a lot of people smarter than me that this is in the very front and center of what they're doing every day and like the middle of their bullseye. I think this is as good of an idea as I've heard, quite frankly.
It's also the real true story of being industrial and retail real estate becoming a hybrid.
Great point.
For not the first time, we've seen hybrids in the past, warehouse stores, stuff like that. But this is a true. They're going to ship out of here. They're going to receive out of here. I have to believe that they're going to have some sort of shopping on site.
Some sort of retail.
Presence there
physical
too.
retail. Yeah.
Because if you got people returning packages and they're getting a refund, maybe at the site, why wouldn't you want to guide them over here and be like, sorry, that TV didn't work, but have you seen this TV?
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for coming in. TJ, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
They can reach me at my email address, tjtwit@omnipartners.com.
Thanks again, TJ. So we told you about the website earlier. Now I don't have to go through and say, find us on Apple, Spotify, but you can. YouTube.
DansOnSite.com.
Thank you very much. Dan Goley, I'm Dan Dutton. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Thanks again for joining us. Find us on Facebook, at YouTube, Dan's On Site. All your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. We would love it if you hit the subscribe button and also leave us a review. Reach us at dansonsite.com.